insecurity. For most Nigerians, if an all-out war is what is required to tackle insecurity ravaging the country, so be it. The Defense Headquarters said it increased its air and ground surveillance in the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, and its surroundings to check the spate of kidnapping in Abuja. The Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Buba Edward, said troops destroyed hideouts of terrorists in Abuja, Niger, and Kaduna states in the process. But despite the launch of the Special Intervention Squad by the Nigerian Police, banditry continues to fester, and we ask, for how long? Julie, this is getting out of hand. It was limited to some parts of the country before, up north. Now it is now across the country, the activities of these bandits.
Yes, you know, there is a lot of banditry happening in some states around the federal capital. States like Niger, states like Nasarawa, states like Kogi, states like Kaduna. All of these states that I mentioned have issues with banditry. And those bandits, because of the closeness to the federal capital, and because of the constant bombardment of the forests in those states, they have now decided to move into communities around Abuja, especially the satellite towns. They have become more emboldened to even come as far as airport road and the Lugbe area along the airport road to kidnap people. They now kidnap travelers on their way to Abuja. They now go into people's homes in some communities outside Abuja. It will degenerate and they will begin to operate within the seat of power if nothing is done or if drastic steps are not taken to deal decisively with them. So the troops launched operation in, at the back of Lugbe, which is along the airport road, Kubwa Hills, the Zuma Rock area in Niger State, and places like Kawu, Gaba, Dede. These are places on the fringes of the seat of power where bandits are known to have operated for some time. I remember a place called Tungamaje. They even went as far as kidnapping children from an orphanage. Bandits, there's a thin line between banditry and terrorism now, because a lot of the terrorists who fled the northeast, they've relocated to the north central, and they are in Niger and some of the communities close to the federal capital. That's why you now see them operating in places like Buhari, places like Kubwa, places like Wagwalada. You know, so we need to do a lot more. I'm happy that the services are collaborating to do joint operation with a view to identifying these guys who, especially those bandits coming in from Kaduna State, because, you know, in Kaduna, a faction of the Boko Haram has its base in Kaduna State. You know, occasionally they move into the federal capital territory, they conduct some operations and leave. After the attack on the prison, in Abuja, in the FCT. People should not write these bandits off. I drove through some parts of Abuja Friday night, and I could see that some street lights were, it's like they were not functioning. There is a need for the minister to focus on the security of Abuja and ensure that the streets, Abuja highways are well lit so that people will feel comfortable driving around in the night. It's a shame that in some parts of the federal capital, the seat of power, the roads are not illuminated at night. This is an enabler to terrorism and to banditry. We received a report that the sisters, 5 of the sisters who were kidnapped the other day, have now been released. It was said that they were released through an operation by the armed forces. If this is true, I'm happy. I just hope it wasn't a case of paying ransom to the bandits that is being dressed up as actual rescue. Whatever it is, I'm happy that those girls have been released. One of them was murdered by the bandits. But we had to do something about security in our country. We can't spend all of that money on the national identification number, yet we can't use it to track these guys who make phone calls to negotiate for ransom. If we do not deploy technology, we will not be able to defeat these guys, because you can't manually police the forests around the federal capital and beyond. We have to use technology. They must use phones to negotiate. How do we track the people who make these calls and bring them to justice? It's only technology that can help us defeat this menace. People are given the impression as if Abuja has never been, as if security had never been breached in Abuja. There's no need for this exaggerated write-ups that people are making. Before our eyes, they entered the prison, which is not far away from the airport, and took away their men. So we've had attacks in Abuja. Yes, we have to improve the security of the Federal Capital Territory, but no one should give us to try to make it look like this had never happened in the past, or that this is the worst that we have seen. All that we require is for everyone to cooperate with the security forces, provide them with information, and for the security forces to sit up. The service chiefs know now that they have to sit up. If they don't sit up, then they have no reason to hold on to their jobs. The president should be prepared to wield the big stick. If he doesn't do that, people will be complacent.
Okay, I think I have Afolabi from the FCC. Is this there?
Yes, Alabi, yes.
All right, go ahead, please.
Hello?
Go ahead with your contribution.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, Mr. Ayo.
Right.
I think what we need now is, who and who is in charge of, this security. Let's say, for example, we have the FCT minister the other time. We had meeting with the security officer, and he said that you, as a commissioner of police, ask me what you want. If I give you and you didn't perform, I will say I will report you, and you will be transferred to another place. So let us do the same thing to all these service chiefs. If something happens anywhere in this country, we should hold them responsible. We are paying a lot of money to this security, and so we should have, enjoy the money we are paying to them. They cannot tell us that there is no money to buy this or buy that. For that, they should provide enough security to everywhere in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alabi. Thank you for your contribution. It took time for these people to penetrate our security network in Abuja, especially if they discover that there's any kind of laxity part of this thing. And I think for us to actually, it's not going to be an immediate approach for security people to be able to dislodge them.
Well, I think we should not also undermine the intelligence of criminals. Dons or somebody who is not as too intelligent cannot operate. They are also very smart people. Some of them have worked either as ex-policemen, ex-soldiers, so they
dismissed.
They have dismissed from the, and unfortunately, the security system don't keep track on some of these people that have been dismissed or, Abuja is like the head in this when you are talking about Nigeria. And you know that when the head becomes rotten, the whole body is gone. The other states are like the body of Abuja is the head. In military training, there is what they call unarmed combat. They always ask you to aim at the head of any person you want to fight. Once you hit a particular place, the person will fall down. So if Abuja becomes a major target and they succeed, we are all going to be in trouble. So we are all concerned because Abuja is a place that the past 5 years, people are moving from the northeast to Abuja, from northwest, from the southwest, because Abuja is considered as a safe place. That once I'm here, I'm free from kidnapping and all that. But right in the city now, this is happening. What the military has done is quite commendable. Area surveillance, which is what they need to do, even where and when there's no threat. Area surveillance should be a constant duty of the security operatives. It's not when there's a case of kidnapping. It should be a daily affair, 24 hours affair. But the issue of security is not going to be in the air alone. It's on the ground, 70%. So it means that we still need to strengthen the police. And I think the major pillar of the way we are talking about dealing with insecurity is intelligence. And intelligence is not just about policemen with equipment alone. We need to work with cultural formations like other countries do. The NURTW, cab drivers, they are good sources of intelligence.
Hunters.
Petrol attendants, they are good sources of vendors. In other countries, they recruit them. Vendors take newspapers from one house to the other. And armed robbers hardly will suspect them. Traders associations, their leaders are not that.
Local vigilantes.
Hunters, farmers. If you are talking about dealing with herdsmen, your best source of information is getting the farmers and hunters, because in the night, they're in that bush. So there must be constructive engagement with the social formation, not just for the police and soldiers to think that, it's our business. The people are the ones. All those people that you declare wanted, they are living somewhere. They eat in the morning, in the afternoon, in the night. Some people will send people to go and buy things for them. So some people know where they live. And of course, when we are talking about military solution, we must also realize that one of the major drivers of insecurity is the economic situation in the country. Poverty, lack of access to the major ingredients of survival. No housing, no job. You wake up in the morning, from morning to night, you don't have any source. You are hopeless to eat. And there's corruption. You see people stealing billions of naira, nothing happens to them. You now ask yourself, so what's the justification in not going into crime? And then pompous display of wealth by the political and economic class, it infuriates the people and fuels the desire to be desperate for money. So we must also fashion out an economic roadmap to deal with insecurity. People need access to jobs. They need to eat. They need to, go to school. If you don't do that, buy all the gadgets, the best gadgets in the world, will only create more armed robbers who will be ready to confront you because they want to survive by all means necessary.
One is saying that we should deal with the symptoms.
Exactly. Do you know that according to Data Fight, in 7 years, Nigeria had 20 jailbreaks. 7 good years. 7 years. 9,000 inmates escaped. About 4,500 or 5,000 are still on the run. And, Kuje prison was broken into. You had a jailbreak in Ogbomoso, in your prison. You had a jailbreak in Kogi. How many times was that prison broken into? So you see that these escapee inmates are still out there.
Yeah.
So they are available for all kinds of criminal activities. And yet, how many of them have been successfully tracked and returned to the prison system? We also have to look at the prison system as a breeding ground for criminals, for terrorists.
Yeah, not reformation ground.
Because you can't just take hawkers, street traders, and just put them in a prison. They will go there to meet hardened criminals, kidnappers, terrorists, and they act as informants. They also act as sleeper cells. They build sleeper cells, and by the time these sleeper cells start becoming active cells, a lot of harm would have been done. So some of these things, I think the state government should also look at non-custodial sentences for certain offenses. It's not everything you take people, go and throw them in jail. For anything, two people who fight, you go and throw somebody in jail. You get street traders, you throw them in jail. There should be more innovative ways of managing the prison, because our prisons are overcrowded. So we need to also look at that very critically, so that we don't end up helping these terrorists to keep recruiting new members into their fold.
Babajide, on this, ultimately, Emeka and Wale, they are saying that, look, we should deal with the symptoms. That the kind of poverty in the land, the unemployment rates, government should deal with that first before we can get to the roots of this matter.
Well, if we look at our problem, some of the there is unemployment all over the country, but we do not have the same level of insecurity. The Southwest, for example, is the most secure geopolitical zone in our country. But that doesn't mean there is not so much unemployment. Bandits who moved from being terrorists to bandits, the origin of their brand of terrorism cannot really be traced to unemployment. Because Shekau used to mix with the high and the mighty in our society in the Northeast. He was a perfume seller. He used to visit offices, linked up with even big politicians. And then he came up, along with his boss, Yusuf. They came up with their brand of Islam, and invariably, with the killing of Yusuf, they turned into full-scale terrorism, and they began to kill people. From full-scale terrorism, they merged into banditry. Today, a good number of people trained by Shekau are actually bandits operating in Niger and some parts of the Northwest. So when you look at the origin of some of these bandits, some of them took to banditry because they fell victim to cattle rustlers, and they just felt that, look, if you can't beat them, let's join them. Not that they were particularly suffering from poverty. But of course, they've been able to get a lot of foot soldiers because an idle hand is the devil's workshop. So a lot of people believe that, look, let's join them, we'll make some money. And they have informants, they pay these informants a lot of money and all that. I'm not saying that we should not address the endemic poverty in our land. But what we are going through in the FCT especially we have to realize that terrorists, especially some remnants of the Boko Haram faction called Ansaru, who used to operate in the Kaduna area, have moved closer and closer to the federal capital, and we've seen them operating along with other terrorist elements in the federal capital. Not long ago, they attacked men of our the Brigade of Guards. That is the most daring attack on soldiers in the Abuja area. And that happened even before this regime came in. So no one should try to give the impression that, oh, this is just happening. It has never been this bad. People could slaughter soldiers in broad daylight. People who could attack Kuje prison and operate for about 45 minutes and went away. They've always been around. So we must take steps to deal decisively with them. Every time it appears that we've won the war and things have calmed down, you will just see them, they will attack us again. We saw what happened on the train route when they attacked an Abuja Kaduna train. So this thing has been there for some time. Because we didn't defeat them decisively, they now have a fresh impetus to make Abuja their own, to make the FCT their own. This is what we must resist, rather than coming up with all kinds of theories, conspiracy theories, and all that. That will not help us. We must take steps that will lead us to victory. We all talk about progress in the Northeast. No doubt about it, there's progress in the Northeast. But they are moving into other parts of our country because they have nowhere to go in the Northeast. The kind of attacks they used to launch in the Northeast, they can no longer launch them. Now we must divert our attention to fresh areas of threats. That is what we need to do.
Right. Okay.